Wait, just looking at the concept art, there's some stunning revelations you can still find. First of all, there's this picture here which seems to show Zelda on the floor behind Link, almost reminiscent of scene we might see out of the sequel. Over here, we've got some sort of huge wildebeest horn-looking creature, almost like the animal that they're riding in the trailer, all packed up with the torches and light. Then finally, we've got weird Gerudo shark lady. I don't know what else you call that, but there's actually another sand shark swimming through the sand on a chain underneath. Just bizarre, cool concept art, but just amazing to think what we might still see in the sequel. One of my favourite things about Breath of the Wild is the experience it offers players, the unbridled freedom to choose your own adventure and play the game your way. This freedom is expressed in the variety of content you can find here on YouTube, from theories and in-depth explorations to speedruns, walkthroughs and top 10 lists. To this day, I'm still so amazed at how much effort developers went to in creating such an immersive world, rich with atmosphere and mystery. It can easily be missed by players in their pursuit of completing the game. One of the biggest criticisms I hear about Breath of the Wild is in relation to the story, and how it lacks the depth of more structured titles, but such is the sacrifice of providing true player freedom. It's now impossible to allow the player to freely traverse and expand at this scale, whilst maintaining a complicated storyline, somehow delivering it to players at the right time, regardless of their personal choice. And it's for this reason that I spend so much time lingering on the environmental storytelling that Breath of the Wild offers. Because in this arena, the game excels at taking the narrative from a simple story into something more akin to an epic saga. In your travels, you might stumble across the ruins of an ancient civilization, lost to the sands of time, now considered one of the greatest mysteries of the game in the Zonai ruins. Or perhaps you come across the remnants of an epic battle, an eerie vista of lifeless machines strewn across the fields of Fort Hatino, evidence of a desperate last stand between the calamity and the remains of civilization in the nearby settlements. Whether it be leviathans of gargantuan proportions, forgotten temples idly sleeping at the end of a magnificent ravine, there seems an endless amount of exploration waiting for you, ready to reward your curiosity with another piece of the larger story about this world, ravaged by a calamity and lost to the wilds in its wake. Many of these locations have become the focus of theory since the game's release, but just like the depth within the world of Hyrule, these mysteries still have secrets to explore for those curious enough to keep digging. Today, join me as I explore one of my favourite mysteries of the game, the Gerudo Heroine Statues. My fascination of the Gerudo Heroine statues goes all the way back to the release of the game. See, back then I was fascinated by the mysterious locations I came across, and this curiosity led me to a new passion, exploring Zelda theories and enjoying the videos put together by Zelda theorists on YouTube. Creators like Zeltic, Nintendo Black Crisis, Bandit Games and Monster Maze became my go-to for a good theory fix. NBC covered the statues early on, starting with the 7 heroines and revisiting the 8th heroine sometime later. Links to those videos will be in the description, and I highly recommend you check them out. There's lots of facts and details he covers in both, much of which form the starting point for this video. Plus, they're really entertaining. To bring you up to speed though, in the Gerudo Desert you'll come across a monument that typifies the term epic. In the middle of what feels like nowhere, 7 colossal statues stand guard, coalesced in a circle seemingly carved out of the surrounding rock face. They are conspicuous by nature, but should you miss them on your way to Gerudo Town, a quick chat with Ratana in the library located next to the Noble Canteen culminate in a shrine quest dubbed the 7 Heroines. This quest asks players to solve the riddle of matching the symbols to their respective statue by way of moving these large orbs into place, which will reveal a secret shrine, one of the 120 hidden across the landscape of Hyrule. Yet another interaction, this time with a character named Bozai on the outskirts of Gerudo City and while dressed as a Vi, or woman, will uncover yet another mammoth statue, referred to as the 8th Heroine. This side quest comes in 2 parts, with Bozai reluctantly parting with unique sand and snow boots in exchange for photographic evidence of the 8th Heroine, as well as its missing sword, both of which are located further north in the Gerudo Highlands. This exchange is all part of Bozai's attempt to garner the favour of Link, whom Bozai has confused with the Gerudo female due to the disguise Link adorns in gaining access to the female-dominated township. An exploration of the 7 heroines will reveal they are covered in Gerudo script, an in-game language that can be translated to state the 7 sages, repeating across the trim of the statue's clothes. Each statue appears identical, standing firm with arms outstretched over a golden claymore, not dissimilar from the way Beliara guards read you in the throne room in town. Even more curious though is the 8th heroine, located miles away from the other 7 and looking north to the Hebra Mountains. Aside from its unusual placement, this statue features the same markings, albeit a mirror reflection of its kin, with the sword buried deep into the lofty heights of the Gerudo summit. Bozai's quest will explain that this heroine is all but forgotten to the annals of time, and seems almost shocked when you complete the task, providing proof of not only the statue, but the lost sword as well. Now, whilst most believe the 7 statues are a callback to the 7 sages featured most notably in Ocarina of Time, the heroine label poses a conundrum of sorts, especially considering that most incarnations of the 7 sages have featured one, if not more, males amongst the group. One explanation is that as Gerudo women predicate the population due to only one male Gerudo being born every 100 years, the heroine moniker is a logical interpretation of the legend, edited for this generation's understanding of this historic myth. Yet another suggests it refers to a Gerudo lineage of female warriors and protectors, rejecting the notion of the 7 sage connections altogether. Yet both arguments fall short when it comes to shedding any light on the mystery surrounding the 8th statue, and thus the mystery remains largely unsolved to this day. Now, courage is a crucial aspect of the coveted Triforce, so to preface this next section, let's just say I'm calling on every ounce of it for what I'm about to put forward. You see, I think I can shed some light on this mystery, but it involves a crucial skill which I lack severely, and that's the ability to translate Japanese. But after pouring way too many hours into negotiating the finer aspects of Japanese to English linguistics, I decided that the best approach was to simply explain what I found, in the full knowledge that I could be mistaken. So, in researching the quest in Japanese, as well as the descriptions and countless lines of dialogue, I believe the 7 heroines are not heroines exactly. I'm going to avoid taking you down the rabbit hole of understanding the complexities of characterizations that make up the Japanese language, and how the combination of said characters equate to context and interpretation. Suffice it to say that in my humble experience, Japanese is both a beautiful and intricate language, not easily translated or interpreted by anyone. I've got links in the descriptions for the references I've used, including a great article from the Legends of Localization, who specialise in gaming translations, but essentially the term being referenced when discussing the heroines is Ayu. It's a noun meaning hero, brave man or brave woman in Japanese. The characters are applicable to both that of a hero or a heroine, and can also work as a plural of the noun. Now, with all apologies for my lack of finesse on the subject, I understand the translation in this instance to be made of both kanji and hiragana. Kanji referring to the characters adopted from Chinese, with the unique stylizations representing more so the idea than the pronunciation. Due to the complexity in interpretations with kanji, some texts adopt the use of hiragana to provide inflection or function as well as pronunciation. When coupled with kanji, the hiragana is called furigana, or kana for short, acting to phonetically render the word easier to understand for people learning the language, such as students, foreigners, or YouTubers silly enough to tackle a translation. So, applying this to the term referencing the heroines, I believe the first 2 characters are kanji, whereas the 4 characters following are kana. Even then, there is room for interpretation depending on the context and structure of the sentence, which could change the meaning entirely. For this reason, I won't be at all surprised if some of my more studious and learned viewers provide corrections. Knowing my shortcomings, I opted for a variety of sources and translation tools, including Japanese quest guides, translation guides and texts, DeepL, Google Translate, and resources within the Zelda community at large. That said, the same translation recurred time and time again, and if I've understood the materials correctly, and again, I stipulate there's a good chance I haven't, but the 7 heroines quest we know in the English version of the game translates strictly to be the 7 heroes in Japanese. And in that translation, the characterization of heroes is gender neutral, implying that statues might represent either male or female characters of great repute. As such, the quest then aligns with the obvious interpretation of the 7 sages moniker suggested by the Gerudo inscription. And it would make sense. The Seven Sages have been a recurring theme in Zelda games, most notably those featuring in Ocarina of Time. But the Seven Sages are also referenced, albeit in differing incarnations of race and gender, in A Link Between Worlds, Link to the Past, Spirit Tracks, Wind Waker, Within the Castle, and even hinted at in other titles like Twilight Princess, where 6 sages feature in the game. Why 6, you might ask? Well, that's because in that incarnation, the sages did not include Zelda, who usually rounds out the 7th sage. Assuming the translation is correct, we can tick one suspicion off the list as confirmed. Now applying the 7 sages to the icons on the orbs is a more challenging fare. Typically the 7 sages feature distinct symbols that are forest, fire, water, shadow, spirit, and light. For this quest, the dialogue refers to spirit, gentleness, endurance, wisdom, flight, motion, and skill. Whilst the symbology is a little tricky, we can align these qualities to the sages from Ocarina of Time, and allowing for some creative freedom and flexibility, could even hazard a guess as to how that might apply to potential sages or characters of like mind in the Breath of the Wild universe currently. In Japanese, the translations equate to mind, technique, resistance, knowledge, flight, movement, and flexibility. So let's have a go. Skill and technique apply to Impa, Sage of Shadow, Colour of Purple, descended to Impa of Breath of the Wild. Spirit, mind, and heart applies to Naburu, Sage of Spirit, Colour Orange, and her descendant Nriju. Endurance and resistance applies to Darunia and his descendant Yunobo, Sage of Fire, and Colour Red. Flight applies to Rauru and his owl form Kabora Gabora, Sage of Light, Colour Yellow, and his descendant would be Tiba. Motion and movement represent Princess Ruto, Sage of Water, and her descendant in Prince Sidon with the colour of blue, and gentleness and flexibility is matched to the Sage of Forest, Saria, and the earthy colours of green. Now, this one is a bit of a stretch, but I'm guessing an alignment to Hestu, because I love that guy busting out his dance. And finally, we have knowledge culminating in Princess Zelda, known as the Sage of Time, or Wisdom, depending on which school you're from, where all things are of purity, whether black or white. Finally, I went a step further and align those aspects to the ores found in the game, which also provide certain properties or attributes when combined with armour. Now, while this is my take, I'd be really interested to hear what you think, so let me know in the comments. Now, whilst the term hero translated had a dual meaning for the 7 heroines, or should I say heroes, it was not the same case when it came to the 8th. Again, I could be off base, but my translation suggested a masculine orientation when it came to dialogue, or text about the 8th hero. The 7 sages or heroes each had a unique power that formed part of a greater whole. Now, should the 8th heroine or hero be someone who combined their power with that of the sages as it suggests in the quest, it might be referring to the ancient hero. Similar to what we saw when the Hero of Time joined forces with the 7 sages in Ocarina of Time to seal Ganon upon his defeat. Ironically, we see this statue is a mirror reflection of the others with its sword missing, buried halfway down the blade in the mountain peaks. Almost identical in a way to the image we now see of a Malice-ridden Master Sword in the delay announcement trailer. Could this indicate that the 8th hero is the ancient hero, forgotten in history like the Hero of Time, yet somehow part of a greater legend? Now, although this interpretation would be a welcome outcome for many, we can't ignore the fact that there's some problems with that version of events. First and foremost, the quest log, and indeed Bozai's description, state that the 8th heroine is worshipped to this day by her faithful in the Gerudo Highlands. Again, this has already been covered off, as we know the Gerudo Highlands are home to the Yiga clan and their banana-laden hideout. According to knowledge shared in-game, the Yiga formed following the expulsion from the palace many years ago following the last calamity. It proposes that the king grew wary of the Sheikah technology and banished them from the kingdom, leading to a split between the devout Hylian worshippers and the militant faction who splintered into the Yiga clan. Allegedly aggrieved at their betrayal, the Yiga turned their favour to Ganon, spurning all who would deny him, and marking their allegiance with turning the Sheikah symbol upside down, as a defiant heretic may spurn the cross. Based on this understanding, it's almost logical to think that perhaps the Yiga are following a heroic effigy, none other than Ganondorf, making him the 8th heroine. This claim would be controversial to say the least. However, it's been generally implied throughout the series that Ganon is more of a victim to the Curse of Demise, which fuels his lust for power. Referring to Ganondorf in the Wind Waker, speaking his last words echoing the wind synonymous with his motivations, Hyrule Encyclopedia states, "In defeat, he was freed from his unceasing, demonic desire to attain the Triforce, which clung to him like a curse." Powerful stuff. Could it be that Ganondorf we see down in the depths of Hyrule's underground is a mirror of his usual torment, one burned by the royal family, just like Sheikah in times gone by, trapped in an eternal anguish to maintain a power grip on the land and its inhabitants? Now, the idea might sound far-fetched, but a glance at the history tells the tale of a jealous king, concerned that the Sheikah's advanced technology could serve to handle even the direst of threats, thereby negating the need to maintain the lineage of the royal line. What better way to shore their position than to create a greater monster and banish the threat impending in a defiant fit of rage? There are gaps in history we are led to believe as fact in Breath of the Wild. One of the best examples lies in this very briefest of recollections, somewhat contrary to cutscenes in the tapestry. In-game dialogue from Kato hints at a variation to the chain of events. Kato states that we of the Sheikah tribe have long been heralded as a people of great wisdom. Our technology became the key to sealing Ganon away during the Great Calamity, some 10,000 years ago. But after the Great Calamity and the king's death, the Sheikah tribe was split in two. Some became part of the dishonourable Yiga clan. This quote suggests that the split between the peaceful Sheikah and the Yiga is more of a recent occurrence. In turn, the connotation elevates the technology the Sheikah wielded as playing far more than the support role indicated by the tapestry. Thinking about it now, the tapestry shows a stupendous amount of Sheikah technology and influence acting upon the events of the calamity so many years ago. It also achieves its purpose in illustrating a kingdom in awe of the Sheikah's technical prowess, and the jealous reactions of King callously banishing his closest supporters, who dealt his demons in the shadows lest the glimmer of the crown ever tarnish or fade. If it wasn't the banishment from the king that caused the divide in the Sheikah, and it occurred after the king's death, then what was it? There's more than a mystery lurking somewhere in that tapestry, in the events of 1,000 years ago. Did some members of the Sheikah discover a secret hidden in the dark? A mummy in the royal family's closet? Maybe time will tell. More clues to a shadowy past surface when reviewing the weaponry of the Sheikah, like the Edge of Duality, which could almost be a motto for the series by now, and the Serpentine Spear. Items that almost mimic the craftsmanship and duplicitous nature of Gerudo weaponry like the Moonlight Scimitar, Radiant Shield and Daybreaker. Stylized design encrusted with jewels and colours that could almost represent the sages of legend themselves. The serpent-inspired motif of Gerudo workmanship underline their ties to the Gerudo thief legend in Ganondorf, and demonstrate a wealth previously unheard of for the Gerudo of old. Gerudo City itself is built on a bountiful water supply that spreads out across the settlement, feat likely made possible by underground aquifers, suggesting technology and equipment more closely associated with the Sheikah, who may have played a role in the city's current levels of prosperity. At the very least, if Groose was the father of the modern Gerudo, then I'd hazard a guess that the relationship he formed with Impa all those many years ago thrived well into the future and led to the world we now see in Breath of the Wild. And then of course back to the theory, we have a third option, and this one is very left of centre, but it could indeed be the simplest and potentially the most logical explanation there is. The Eighth Heroine is found in Hima's Descent. Translated from Japanese to Gerudo Highlands, Hima or Hema is a term for blunder, bungle or gaff, lending a different view to the statue found here. Could the map be referencing the failed craftsmanship of the statue, with the inscriptions reflected incorrectly, and or the sword broken above? Or does this reference ring true to another hero the Yiga clan would more likely worship? I refer to none other than Master Koga, revered by the Yiga but bungling in nature. Even the sword on top of the mountain could be referencing his clumsy attack method of summoning weaponry above his own head, as well as the Yiga's penchant for upending symbology in defiant opposition, like the Sheikah symbol. A character comically inept in execution yet devoutly followed by his cadre, that even after his disappearance the attacks on Link grow increasingly more frequent and hostile. Considering that the Yiga hideout is repurposed from a Gerudo place of worship and features all 8 statues, I'm inclined to think that the 8th Heroine is actually referring to either Link or Ganon. It seems as if the Yiga have adopted this hideout and turned it into an excavation site of sorts, with evidence of demolition and excavation works all around the inner workings. Even the massive hole which consumes Koga appears reinforced by stonework adorned with the Sheikah symbology. and topped with fineries and torches. It looks to me like they're searching for their master in the depths, and this fact is echoed by the Champion's Ballad, where the machinations of the eager in stealing the Thunder Helm and seeking Ganon's resurrection are explicitly stated. Before closing out today's video, I wanted to highlight a great comment I got in my last video about the hand from Vargan1414. They pointed out that Ganondorf's ears were changed back to rounded in the 3DS version, which is a great call out and something that has a connection to this video. Creating a Champion features a section specifically addressing the relationship between the Calamity, Ganondorf, and the Gerudo. On page 401, the book details how the Gerudo have developed pointed ears, offering two reasons for this evolution from the rounded ears they adorned in prior outings. The first opinion centers around an evolution of sorts inevitable from breeding with Hylians over countless generations. The alternative theory, though, suggests a more supernatural reason, indicating that the Gerudo's shame from association with Ganondorf has resulted in a sort of religious awakening, leading to a greater acceptance in hearing messages from the goddesses or the divine. This claim can be countered, though, by the fact that the statue of Hylia, although worshipped thoroughly throughout the rest of the land, is forgotten in a back alley of the Gerudo city. But an investigation of page 401 also highlights a moment in time we know all too well. It connects the last whereabouts of a physical Ganondorf with Nibiru, and thus his appearance in Ocarina of Time. Taking this on board, we can surmise that the Ganondorf we see in the trailer is indeed likely more than 10,000 years old, with ears that still represent the shaping of the Gerudo last seen in the distant past, which is interesting stuff. Now, I won't rehash the debates about which version or timeline this might represent, because it could in fact be a completely new incarnation of the series' antagonist, and undoubtedly one with the premise to have the most tragic backstory of any villain we've seen in the series to date. Either way, it's a great example of why I love this community and reading all of the comments people take the time to put on the videos, so thanks for that. With that said, I'm going to wrap this up by going out on a limb and putting my money on the 8th hero being a combination of Ganon and Link. See, my guess at this stage of the game is that what we see in the trailer is Ganon joining with Link and a hybrid of the two forming. I'm going to say it's possible due to a connection in their bloodline, which was indicated in the Gerudo stylizing in Link's undergarments when the game was released. It's a crazy, wacky, speculative guess, and for what it's worth, I encourage you all to do the same. If we have learned anything from this wonderful series, it should be that life is an adventure and takes courage to fully appreciate and enjoy. And if you stay on the beaten path, well, you might just miss out on the story of a lifetime. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Give the video a like if you enjoyed the content. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments and a call out to anyone who might be interested in being a moderator on the upcoming Discord channel. Hit me up in the comments or send me an email and I'll be in touch over the coming weeks. As always, take care of yourselves, keep being amazing. I'll see you next time here on GameSmiths.